Hey everybody, it's Emmanuel from Duel, and today I am joined by none other than
I'm Paul Archer, also from Duel.
we're both from Duel, and Paul is the CEO of Duel, and he is a brand building expert. And today, the basics that we are going to run through is essentially what is a brand ambassador. We're going to define what it is, what a brand ambassador program looks like, different ways to scale, loads of different stuff we're going to get into today. So yeah, stay tuned and yeah, we're in for some brand building gems, right?
Can't wait, mate.
Cool. So, okay, we're gonna start at the beginning, right? What is a brand ambassador? You know, what's the definition? What's the history?
So a brand ambassador is someone who is an ambassador for a brand. I mean, unsurprisingly enough. But if you think about what is an ambassador, I mean, the most common sort of use of it, the classic is someone like an ambassador for a country, Ferrero Rocher ad. They are a representative of that country in another space, and so I think that is exactly the same for a brand ambassador. It's someone who represents the brand. Is that they are they are recognized by the brand, just like an ambassador is recognized by a country as a representative that represents them and their views. And their job is to promote and support and advocate for that brand in any way that they would find useful.
Hmm. I like the definition because it doesn't just apply for brands. You broke it down and we're like, there are brands, but ambassadors have existed forever, right? Anybody who represents something bigger or a person is an ambassador.
Yeah, an ambassador is an advocate. So you would have an advocate for different charities, or you have advocates for different causes in government. You also have advocates for brands, and so an ambassador though is anyone can advocate for something. So I can say, well, I love this product, or I recommend this, and I advocate for exercise and advocate for this and that. But am I an ambassador for exercise? Well, no, because exercise can't recognize me as being an ambassador. So the difference between an advocate and an ambassador is that an ambassador is recognized by the entity that they are advocating for. Just like I can say I'm an advocate for going to Australia, a great place, but I'm not the ambassador, right? I'm not recognized by Australia to represent them and what they're doing, and so that's the main difference of it. Another sort of part of that's worth addressing is that it's a long-term relationship. Now I can advocate once for something and say, oh, it's great. But an ambassador is someone who has a long-term relationship of advocating repeatedly for something. An ambassador, there are very few brand ambassadors who represent a brand that they don't like for a year. Like you have many influencers that get paid to pretend to look like a brand for a one-off post, but very few of them are brand ambassadors over a long period of time. Right, welcome back to part two. So we're going to talking about how brands can work with brand ambassadors.
Yeah, and I wanted to get straight into it, and we kind of agreed brand ambassadors are important and why. So what happens when somebody wants to build a program? First of all, what is a program?
Yeah, so if you want to work with lots of brand ambassadors, I mean, as we said, the most effective way of working with ambassadors is to build a relationship with them. The problem is if you need to work with lots of them, building a relationship with lots of people gets quite hard. So you need to sort of standardize certain parts of it and kind of give them a collection, have maybe some parameters, a place to hang out, some rules, maybe some standardized rewards, incentives, activities, whatever that is a very loose kind of, loosely you would group them together and call it a program. So there's no science to that bit specifically. But what it can do is it can allow you to work with a lot more people, potential advocates, potential brand ambassadors, and given the same sort of time input for you as an operator at a brand.
Okay, so using that definition, if I've got a standardized set of rules, if I've got a system of gifting, something like that, technically I could do that in a WhatsApp chat. Hey guys, these are the rules of the chat. This is what happens when you do X, Y, and Z. Or I could do it on a really massive scale, right? But what makes a program good from your perspective?
Yeah, I mean, well, it's not really from my perspective, but I think one of the key things is to really empathize with the people at both sides of it, right? So it is a relationship. A relationship is two ways, and so therefore you have to know what both parties want to get out of it. And it's can't be that the ambassador is saying, I need this, I want this, and everything like that. Actually, it's, that's often the way a lot of brands work with the influencers, for example, like, here's my rate card, here's what I will do, who I won't do, and everything like that. And the way that you can get rid of that and sort of standardize it is by setting rules like, this is what we do, this is what we expect of you, and this is what you'll get from it. You can choose to take part in it, to join that or not join it. Which will automate out so much of the back and forth that people do. So that could be on a WhatsApp, it could be in an email chain, whatever it is. Actually, the medium that happens doesn't matter, but by setting rules, you actually, as a brand builder, you are in control. But also you have to be empathetic and understand deeply what the ambassador will want, and make sure that you kind of align what you're going to give to what they would expect too. So making sure those rules aren't ridiculous and they are aligned to it, but also setting those rules will allow you to be efficient so that you can do that with 50, 500, 5,000 brand ambassadors, because you're not having an individual relationship, an individual transaction with every single one. You're actually building a community then, basically. And that's the sort of the top of the pyramid of, you start with the program and people will self-identify, or be a part of a program, be a part of a club, and eventually you might actually get a community out of it, but that will only happen in a handful of examples.
Okay, I love that. One thing you said that seemed quite powerful was, it's not necessarily, it could be used in any medium, but the most important thing are those rules, or that system. That system,
an infrastructure basically that you're doing, that basically allows you to do it.
And then the tech supplements that, or bosses it up and comes later, but only happens if it actually exists in the first place, that system.
Exactly. If you're a brand, so you're going to set out and start building a brand ambassador program. The first thing to understand is, why are we doing this? Like, what is the most important outcome that you want to get out of that program? Is it we want to get exposure? Is it we want to get social reach? Is it we want people to sell, like, at pure revenue? Because every brand's thinking about revenue, that's fine, but a lot of brands won't be able to track sales, and so actually making because they'll sell through retailers or something like that, so making it all about sales means that you won't really have an effective program, because the ambassadors won't be able to track all the good work they do. So well, what's the proxy for that? Is it reach? Is it social posting? It could be that actually what you want is content. Some great ambassador programs are just great content creators creating content that the brand can use as effectively the program is a content machine that they can use and reuse, and those people who are in it are there because of products or recognition that they get from it. There's a whole different reasons why a brand will do it, but the most important thing is that the brand has to be very clear when they start off, and I think they should articulate that clearly to the ambassadors. So that's the first step. You get the why. The next bit you're going to talk about is the who. Like, so who are you going to have in your program? Are we looking at existing customers? Are we looking at people who have a specific interest or an area of expertise? Are we looking at people who have a specific reach? It could be that, right, our program is for social creators with 2,000 to 10,000 followers, which is often where people go, but there are also a lot of really interesting brand ambassador programs for specialists. You have industry pros. So if you're a makeup brand, it would be makeup artists. If you're a hair care brand, it's hair stylists. Each of those are individual experts who are nodes, highly respected nodes in their own network. Other people say, well, if you say I should use this product, I'll use that product. And it could be same for athletes. It could be instructors, guides, big names on campus, whatever it is. But basically, each demographic that you work with will have different expectations, and you'll have different expectations from them. So if you want to work with, let's say, if you're a beauty brand, hairstylists as an industry pros and creators on Instagram, sometimes there's an overlap between those two, and often there is an overlap between those two, but you would probably want to have two programs, because you don't want them all chucked into the same one, because the language, the way you approach them, the rewards, the expectations, the activities that you'll be driving for them won't match up. So we've got the why, we've got the who, and then the how. whole myriad of ways of how you can do this. We talked about different platforms. It could just be a WhatsApp group. It could be a spreadsheet of people that you email every now and again, or maybe it's something which is a bit more complex and you've got an application form, or maybe you're using like a powerful piece of software that to actually to manage that at scale. That can go in a bunch of different ways, but it really will depend on the first two, basically.
Okay, that was really useful.
And actually, in addition, the other parts that you probably should think about is then after you. So we've got the why they're going to do it. We've got the who that's going to be doing it. We're going to have what they're going to do as well. So that would be they're going to be posting to social. They're going to be creating content. That is, they're going to go out in the street and shout your brand from the rooftops and be a brand ambassador on the ground. Think of the Red Bull street team type of model, and there's lots of times when that's worked very, very successfully. What they're going to do really matters, and then understanding the how you're going to do that. Is the how is about kind of tracking it, making sure that they're going to do it, giving them the tools that they need, educating them with what they need to do with it, and then also making sure that they are incentivized with whatever's right. And so the incentives could be products, it could be credibility, it could be money. It's often not money, by the way. As soon as you pay someone, they'll expect to get paid for everything they do, which works if you're doing a street team model, but probably doesn't work quite as well if you're doing a kind of an industry pro thing. There, they would maybe have different incentive schemes. Sometimes it is money, and it's a part of the mix, but you've got to make sure you get that bit right.
Yeah. So if I'm a brand builder and I'm building a brand that sells athleisure, for example, I want to not just target like customers. I know that there are some really top level yoga teachers. I'm probably gonna want to target them, right? They are the who, right? And I want them to be ambassadors for me, formally recognized. So the way in which I choose to engage with them might be different to, maybe another group of people. Those would be the industry pros, is what you're saying. They would be the industry pros.
And you've got great examples of Lululemon and Sweaty Betty, both of whom have Make Athleisure, both of whom have programs for their industry pros, which are yoga instructors or like local instructors. And the way that they have programs for each of those, and the programs that they have are about discounting. So they're making sure that those pros get a 30% discount or whatever it is on their products, to ensure that they are wearing those products when they are out being a yoga instructor in front of 20 people 10 times a day or 5 times a day, or however many classes that they do. So that would be how they do that. And then they, when done well, will leverage that to allow them to participate on events for them, include them, support them, all those kind of things. And that is when that becomes a program. And so perfect example.
Yeah. So that makes me think a bit about how we target and recruit these industry pros and these these people that can basically be ambassadors for us into the program, right? And I immediately thought, how do you market to them? Because you don't want to send a target ad at them asking them to join your community. That doesn't feel like the kind of entry point or touch point in which you want to recruit people like that. So where does someone start if they want to recruit these people into their program and grow?
I mean, you can do that. You can just say, would you want to be a part of this? You tend, you should know where these people hang out. They should be the people you're engaging with on a regular basis. And so when you do, you'll say, would you like to be a part of our program? What? And they'll say why. And then you get 30% discount. And I said, that sounds pretty sweet. I'm already spending loads of money with you. Let's get some more. So that's like probably a place to do it. You'd market it. You put it on your website. Have a form that they can fill in, and that you would get that kind of data, and then you can distribute them in whichever way that you would want.
Okay, but you mentioned it here where you were like, oh, we recognize you already, spend with us. Do you think that would be a kind of thing you'd want to, like a brand should highlight, like, oh, we want you to join because we recognize you're part of us?
Well, I mean, you can just market it to your customer base in the same way that you would with anything else that you're marketing. So if you launch a program, you need people to know about it. So you'll talk about it. So you'll post it to your social channels. You'll email it out to your CRM saying, are you a yoga instructor? We've just launched a program for yoga instructors. Apply. Do you fit this set criteria? which allows people to be like, yep, that is me, or no, that's not me, and then they can apply, and if they get accepted on, they get all the perks and benefits that you would have as associated with that program.
Okay. So obviously we use the example of like athleisure and like industry pros, but maybe some brands maybe have a setup that doesn't make them ideal. What other, you know, groups could they target, and what would their program look like?
Well, it wouldn't. I mean, even if you look at the Lululemons and Sweaty Betties of the world, is that they don't just work with local yoga instructors. They will also want to work with kind of social creators as well. And so how would you engage with them in a different manner, in a different model that you would do? So you build a program for those guys. And for some brands that just don't have that type of product, that's often one of the only channels that they do have. If you look at like fashion brands, you know, so many people find out what they want to wear through Instagram accounts run by fashionistas who are, you know, taking photos of their looks, and the value that they're adding to their community is this is a look, and you can love it or hate it, and they say where they got it from. So, you know, brand far more than they do. They used to read magazines and they used to do this. They're getting it now, the same stuff on the Instagram. So once they're actually reading those kind of things, you actually can build a program for those people so that they can get free products, so that 1 in 3 or 4 of the pictures that they'll post will be your brand. And building a program that drives people to do that is very, very powerful. And so finding those people a little bit harder than looking locally, apart from the fact that if they are already your customers, they already love you. So you have a program, same as we were saying with the yoga pros, you launch it saying, we now have a program for fashionistas on Instagram. Are you a fashionista on Instagram? Where would you market that? Probably on Instagram, because they're probably following you on Instagram, and they'll say, well, I want some free stuff, that sounds really good, I'll do that. And then they self-select in, they then go off and they do the posts, and then they'll then kind of advocate to their own communities about how great you are, because they think you're great, because they already do. That's why they follow you, that's why they love you, that's why they signed up to it in the first place. So it's authentic, it's high quality, and it's also going to get out to quite a lot of people as well.
Cool. So what you just said was really useful, but I couldn't help think, you know, as a brand builder, now we've identified why I should work with ambassadors, why I should have a program, you know, even where to find them, right, amongst our customer base. But managing all of that feels a bit overwhelming, I'm not going to lie. Now, I've got to manage all of these people instead of just maybe finding one, like, popular person. You know what I mean? There's a lot of methods that I was trying to do. So how do I deal with that overwhelming feeling?
Yeah, so because one way you do it, this could sound like a sales pitch, and we could say about actually you would use Duel. Most brands shouldn't be using our software because it's probably overkill for what they need. Like if you're trying to manage this number of people and you're starting out for your programs, you know, you should create a channel where these people can apply to be a part of it, and create a mailing list. Or maybe it's a channel on WhatsApp or whatever you're using that's the right one, depending on who the demographic is, where they can just say, you can have a broadcast bit where you can talk to them, they can maybe talk to each other, that's a little bit harder, but and then start communicating with them. So that could literally be a landing page on your website that says, here's the program, here's who is in it, who's allowed in it, and anyone who's not that is not allowed in it. Here's what you're going to get from it, and here's how you apply. And that sets the parameters, it gives you a control of it, and then they can apply, and then you just will be able to communicate with them via, you know, an email newsletter or via WhatsApp. And you can take those things and keep it in a spreadsheet. You know, a spreadsheet is good for about 50 different ambassadors. So once you need to scale it out of 50, you should start thinking about bespoke software for it. But like until then, you know, there's no point. You shouldn't go straight to the software unless you have 100 ambassadors and you know where they're going to go, and you know you need to manage with 100 ambassadors. Start off small. Start with 30. Start with 40. Start with 50. Work with those guys. Get a feel. Get feedback from them. Talk to them about what they like, what they don't like. Figure out how easy it was to find them. If that was super easy and you've got another 5,000 waiting in the waiting list to be able, well, maybe you've got something going here. These guys could be super valuable. Time to start thinking about software that can start doing it. But I implore you, considering for someone who makes a brand ambassador software, I'd say don't buy a software. Certainly don't do that straight away. Understand what you need, because then when you do want to scale it, you'll be able to get the right software for you, because you'll know what you're doing. You know what scale, you know what's potential there, you know what rewards work, what don't work, and you know who you're trying to target, and that will basically narrow it down to make it far more effective when you do want to start scaling it.
Yeah, 10 times 0 is 0, right? If you don't have a community already, or if you don't have like a program that you think maps that structure we were talking about earlier, adding a software is not going to do anything. You might end up scaling a really bad program, you know.
Well, exactly, and so a lot of time when you're really early stage, you're a brand and you're just kind of finding your feet. You haven't quite got that kind of critical mass yet. You know, probably less than $1 million revenue or less than 2 million revenue. You're just kind of at that point where you don't quite know. You haven't quite enough customers who love you yet. In that sort of point, probably a program isn't necessary. A scale program certainly isn't the right channel to do. Like, you should intuitively know who those are. So you probably should still be run by the founder. The founder should know all the people by name, and they will be contacting them, asking them to do stuff and gifting them and sending out. It's got to be manual. It's got to be hard, because they will be building relationships, and that one-to-one relationships is how they get amazing feedback on the product, on the comms, on the design, on the brand, so they can make it better. And so that kind of founder experience that they need to iterate and grow and have these relationships with these ambassadors works. A program allows you to scale it. A program gives you the formulation so you can scale the relationship building. But if you are still pre-product market fit, you're still doing, less than $1 million revenue, less than 2 million revenue, your founder should be the one that is like having those deep personal relationships. It shouldn't be scaled, because the knowledge that you'll get from that is more valuable than the scale you get. So once you've reached a certain bit, then you can start to sort of scale for it. But that would only be once you have relationships with tens and tens of ambassadors on a really manual, cumbersome way. Then you need to build a program to automate it, to give it a framework and a structure to it, which could probably still isn't at that stage, needing specific brand ambassador software. And then once that bit is nailed, and you need to start scaling it, you need to go from 50 to 500, because you know that there's the appetite. That's when brand ambassador software can be really valuable.
Like, you heard it here first from a brand ambassador platform, that you shouldn't have one. Which is really useful, but even though that might not come the time for the platform, the thinking should be there from the beginning, right? The advocacy, the why you should have an ambassador. Everything in your marketing strategy should be geared towards, nurturing those passionate fans and those advocates, because they're gonna save you lots of money in the long run, and like spread your
true advocate, true authentic advocate, true authentic ambassador for your brand is invaluable. 50 of them. It's 50 times better.
Yeah. I love that. So cool. Right, thank you, Paul.
No worries, man.
Anything just you wanted to leave us with? Just, any brand builders out there listening?
I mean, I think it's the authenticity that comes back to it again and again. Like, find the people that love you first, talk to them, build relationships with them on a personal level to understand what they would like, what they won't like, what they would do, what they won't do, and then get them to do some of that. And then once you've understood that, then you can start thinking of scaling those relationships with the program, setting the parameters based on the learnings from that. Once you've built a basic program, then you can think about scaling that program.